You want an investment edge, but all you hear is noise, hype, and half-truths. Every signal is solid information, but only if you can see the bigger picture. This is where the Quasar magic happens. Weather, charts, news, all financial signals funneled into a single dashboard. Data alone isn't enough. Quasar Markets turns it into energy, sharp, clear, precise. Optimize with Quasar Markets today. Your edge when investing.
Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. Hope everyone's having a great start to your day. I am here. BigBeat, I understand, is going to try to join us here very shortly. And we do have Steve Flanagan coming on a little earlier here today to help me out. Also, in case BigBeat is unable to make the move to join us. Man, crypto. You know, I come from that side of the world, so I have to start there. Bitcoin back up above 120, but that isn't the big news. The big news is it is alt season. Ethereum up, broke 4,700 earlier here today. $4,700 on Ethereum, just absolutely skyrocketing. A lot of the alts following suit. Solana back over 200 here today. So crypto definitely leading the way. But as we look, futures are up here this morning. Markets are opening strong after encouraging July inflation data that sort of rekindle hope for September rate cut. You know, the S&P 500 futures are up, NASDAQ futures are up, and Dow is holding flat after a strong rally yesterday. In my mind, it's all about the key market sentiment driver, which is the July core CPI. It rose 0.3%, its biggest in 6 months, but still in line enough to keep a September rate cut firmly on the table. So, you know, it hit that nice spot where we're seeing some of the inflation come in, but not in a way that doesn't go along with what Fed Powell actually had to say. So futures markets are now priced in an 80% probability of a 25 basis points cut next month. Our Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, came on, and he actually called for a 50 basis point cut in September. And we're now seeing a little bit of that hit the futures markets here. 10-year Treasury yields are slightly softer today. The dollar index is down slightly. As I mentioned, we'll have Steve Flanagan in later to talk DXY and everything. And man, you know, outside of earnings and other news, I will say the Chinese tech ADRs, the Billies of the world, the things here on my, we look at the gainers here this morning. A lot of them are the Chinese names, Billy, KC, Lee, and others, all moving up today. You know, that is one effect that the DXY moving to the downside has. Chinese investors moving into the market, buying the ADRs. I do see BigBeat trying to get connected in here, but it looks like he's having a little bit of problem. So we'll just keep going until he's able to get connected completely. I will bring up, before we go any further, though, the VIX. VIX down around 14.36. I have mentioned this each time it comes to these levels. Buy the VIX when you do not need it. You buy that protection beforehand. What am I talking about when I say buy the VIX? I will be looking here at long-dated calls. Somewhere, you know, if it breaks below 14, I'll buy the 14, but I'll look at the $15 one out and just wait for the run. I'll buy it about a month out. And again, give it time. What happens? Volatility just spikes. It just always does. You can look at this chart and see the spike here, the spike here, the smaller spike here. But I'll even take a small spike because, again, I'm going to play it with an option play. You could look at doing something like a covered call spread, buy the 15, sell the 17, 18 in that range, you know, type of thing to lessen your cost, or just straight out buy a little bit to hedge. That volatility will help you, because even if the markets go absolutely bonkers, that volatility will kick up that way also. So I like buying it when it's cheap. So that is the idea. That's what we want to do here at Quasar Markets. As like I said, we start to look at what's going on. July CPIs came in, and it didn't kill hopes at all for a Fed cut. And it does look like that's on track. And again, as I said, we've seen even talk about 50 basis points out of the Secretary of Treasury. So let's get into a little bit the individual things that are moving up or down today on the watch list here. I'll start with INTA. If I can find my sheet here. There it is. Intap's big AI cloud beat. Their Q4 revenue came in at 135 million, plus 18% year over year. Just a good move in general. Sorry, trying to get my charts back where I need it here. There we go. Adjusted EPS came in at 27 cents. They were expected at 23 cents. I was more interested in their buyback that they have here. $150 million buyback, up about 7% earlier, now up 19% right now. Excuse me, was up 27% earlier. We've seen the street analysts come out with 5 buys, 4 holds, and 1 sell. See the average price target at $60 here. So it was up as high as 27% pre-market. Strong reversal after being down 42% year to date. And if we want to look a little bit further into it, undervalued AI software play that's pivoting into its profitability narrative. Buyback sends strong confidence signal and watch for follow-through momentum. I do see BigBeat is here with us. Let's see if we can pull him in, get him on the screen.
Good morning, Howard. I'm in the Tampa airport, and I apologize. My iPad is not cooperating this morning, but look, the markets are here. They're still working, and when I look around right now, and the airport's dead, right? We've seen the same thing a little bit, right, with travel starting to chill out a bit, and the consumer is chilling out. I think we're going to find out pretty soon whether or not the Fed's going to chill out too here in September, right?
Yeah, everything's still geared to that. As I was mentioning, Treasury Secretary Bessent calling for 50 basis points, not 25. We've had a lot of Fed talk all day. He's up to 11 people, I believe, in the running now for the new Fed chair there. So adding people, it's no longer the race to the Kevins. So we'll see what happens there. It's been market, crypto alt season. Steve, you said it wasn't alt season. You still saying that?
No, look, crypto is your domain, as we all know, but for me, I'm a little nervous about the crypto space because we don't, if we're basing it on whether or not the Fed is going to cut 50 basis points, I can tell you they're not. They're going to cut 25, and it's already baked into the system already. But when you're cutting like this, and you're seeing a Fed being manipulated by the White House and the Treasury Secretary, which there's a reason why we separate the two. I think there's just too much FOMO in the market here. But for me, Howard, you were spot on with Solana, right? The meme coins are doing quite well. So yeah, I like that. But I'm sticking with Bitcoin. I'm okay with it. As you know, I dumped on the top and I bought back on this dip. It's stacking sats, as we call it in the game, and I'm happy about that. But I just can't figure out if Pepe coins and alligator coins and airplane coins are gonna do well. We just don't know, and I can't bet on that. I can't invest in things like that. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely don't get it. I understand that for sure. And that's not what I'm invested in the meme coins by any means.
Right.
Chainlink is just announced. ICE just announced that they're doing their data feeds through Chainlink yesterday. Does that matter to the world?
Yes.
Feeds coming from ITE from the New York
Yeah.
Stock Exchange. That's
Yeah. In
Chainlink
fact,
now. Chainlink,
yeah.
baby.
And I'll be there
What is
tomorrow.
Chainlink? It's a DeFi protocol I've been talking about on this show for months.
100%. Yeah. And I'll be there tomorrow. I'm going to actually go see the Chainlink situation. I'm excited about that. That's one of the things I'm going to do tomorrow. Uh, it's exciting. You talk about Solana and Chainlink and even Aave. You've nailed them, right? And I think one of the things you've said since the beginning of all of this, and to me, I don't think of Chainlink and Aave as meme coins. I don't think of them as altcoins. I think of them as straight as mainstream because they're doing mainstream things. I think in my perspective, I think I look at it from coins that just have no reason to be available, right? And
Right.
you said that since the get-go, right? I think one of the first things when you taught me about that side of the world was, what does it do? Tell me what it does, and then I'll tell you whether or not it's got a reason to be, right? And you've always been very strong on that, and that's what has grounded me when I look at that, and I don't think of Chainlink as or Aave or Solana as meme coins. I don't think of them as altcoins. I
Well, they're
think of
not
them
memes, but
as
they are alts. Remember, alt is anything not named Bitcoin. So it
but
is
don't
it
but
is
don't you
tough. It is
but
tough
don't
to
you
do that.
But Howard, don't you think at some point that we'll get out of that altcoins and calling it a mainstream coin? I mean,
Well, to me, I call them the blue chips, but that's just me. I've
okay,
never
all
seen it
right.
been picked up. But well, and you do. CoinDesk calls it. They have their 20 most important, and it's not the largest 20. They change it on a quarterly or a monthly basis.
Hey, let's
Company
do
going
that.
public this week. That's bullish. Bullish
Hey,
owns CoinDesk.
I tell you, Howard, you should coin that the blue chips of
Yeah, because
cryptos.
that's what there are. I mean, and that's where it is. And then the other side is DeFi. I had a laugh yesterday. All the folks from World Liberty were on CNBC, and I liked what they had to say, to be honest with you, because they called out, and now Circle getting hit pretty hard today because they're raising money. That Circle pays to play, and that a lot of the exchanges don't want to use USDC as their primary stable coin.
Hmm.
They're looking to use one that doesn't give 60% of the profits to Coinbase, which is why I'm a fan of Coinbase more than Circle. Personally, I'll take the money without doing the work. But that's the case. They did a good job of calling that out, and I do think it's important. And what it is more, it's about these DeFi protocols, and it's watching that total value locked, and it's seeing that what is coming, that these stock exchanges, as you know, I'm a judge for the U.S. FinTech Awards. And as
Yeah.
I was going through the submissions here over the weekend, a lot of things in TradFi getting built now, and the discussion about how they're implementing blockchain into stuff like Equifax and these other companies that are and these companies that are legacy companies that are trying to rebrand themselves into the world of blockchain and AI. It's one of those two words is used in all of them. It's interesting to
And you've
see
been
that.
talking about this for over a decade, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the utility of the coin that separates the difference, right? When we talk about the turn of the century in automobiles, though, as I always do, it's the same thing with crypto, right? There's going to be billions of cryptos, but when you narrow it down, which ones are going to have the right utilities, which ones are going to be used by the banks, which ones are going to be used, and we're already seeing the banking industry falling apart in front of our eyes. You look at Wells Fargo, they borrowed $250 billion in order to stay afloat. This was the biggest bank that was against crypto. Welcome to the world, bank. I think that's the key here. But as we move forward, I don't think it's just the fintech space and finance. It's got to be blockchain and everything. And how do they use these? I'll call it blue chip. We'll call it blue chip now, Howard, for you. Blue chip cryptos that make things go, right. And this is what we need, right? Blockchain, blockchain, blockchain. I'm a firm believer in it. When we talk about blockchain's been around for 50, 60 years. It's nothing new, right? It's just how we've implemented it today and moving it. AI is nothing new. Robotics is nothing new. It's just how we're using it today. And I'm with you on this, man. I think you're absolutely right. I think we're just in the first inning of this, and we're gonna go. What's the markets doing
Yeah.
today? I haven't been able to keep my eye on it a little bit.
Q's, we're doing pretty well. The tick advanced decline about 25.50 right now. Q's up 40 basis points, SPY up 30, Dow up slightly. Gold up back up to 33.56. I did a chat with Mr. Thomas yesterday. He's still saying copper. Yesterday's big move put all those people that he talked to and that we spoke about with copper nicely into profit. He said, now just hold on and don't even look at it. Was his comment to me,
Totally
because they just let it ride. He's like, you put yourself out of, you worried about whether or not you're going to make money on it. Now just hold it. So I love that type of idea. It's what I say with Bitcoin and Ethereum. I just been talking about Chainlink with the Prosper people, saying, hey, listen, just set it in your long-term holdings, because they're redefining how data is going to get integrated across everything.
And you have people like Tom Lee who are also saying the same thing, right? Look, this goes.
Oh, yeah. Well, forget that. Did you see CNBC, our boy Sorkin, who is usually a crypto skeptic, brought up an Ethereum analyst report today, $25,000 by 2028. I mean, even for me, I got to say, come on, slow down, everybody. Let's slow down.
But I mean, Howard, you and I would look at the TV and shake our heads almost every time when they would say, oh, Bitcoin or oh, Ethereum. And today they don't say that anymore, do they? They look at now, it's like, oh, we've always been for it. It's like, really?
Yeah. Well, Joe Kernan has. You got to say, Joe Kernan's, it's funny that the boomer in the group over there has been the earliest adopter of it. And I think it's because he realized he missed other tech things. You've heard him talk, and he missed other tech things, and he's saying, I'm not missing this time. And I get that too. And that's why, as you know, some of the early adopters, the John, Tudor and all those guys, they sort of came to that group, right? Bill Ackerman, they said, listen, I've seen this tech adoption as it went through cell phones, as it went through other things. And it's at that point. Yeah. And it's the darling talk right now, the Ethereum treasury companies. And that's why Ethereum won't stop. It's making the run now that Bitcoin did from 78 to 123. And what I mean is, it's not giving anybody a chance for a pullback, because these treasury companies are just seizing on this, and they're buying more, and they're buying up the supply. And they're putting a liquidity crunch, and then the cash buyers are having to come in and continue to push it up. I mean, it couldn't get across 40, 50. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, I see some of the crypto crew in here. Marilyn, Zora, everybody from Prosper. Good to see you in the room here watching us. Yeah, I mean, just taking off. Yesterday, we got an Aero Finance. Second time in a week it's hit both sides of a profit target in less than a day. And again, why? Because the Aero Finance is at the edge of DeFi. And if you look at total value locked on the platform, and for me, it's about volume, Steve. I'm actually going to pull something up, because it's something you taught me that you want to look at, and it's happening again today. I was looking yesterday and noticed, if you look here down at the bottom of my screen on the right, they do about $15 million a day in average trading on Coinbase. They're at 21.14 already today. It's where volume, it's where the traders are, right, Steve? It's not just, it's not just maybe it's going to take off. The volume's confirming the breakout. And that's what we're seeing across Ethereum, and we're seeing it across a bunch of the others. The volume's confirming these breakouts, which is different than what we had seen. That's the other reason that we're seeing it. I do think, I did tell my crew today, it's time to take some money off some alts and put it in Bitcoin for its next move up.
Yeah.
Zora being one of them. So it is definitely the way to do it, is now cyclically. And I don't think all season's over when I say that. Is what I do think is Bitcoin's getting ready for its next move from 120 to maybe 130, 135. So I do think we're coiling up, and that's going to break the top off of that, and take a little money out of the alts like it always does. And I just think, and I don't think we see a big drop off. I think it's just cyclically. In other words, the alts held up okay while Bitcoin made its run and Ethereum made its run, and now they're making their run, and Bitcoin's holding up and Ethereum's still breaking out. So everything structurally very, very well set up for, that continued bullish setup.
Yep.
Getting back into some stocks here, Steve, I do have a lot of them. This one I think you're going to like. WEBT surges 42%. Marvel and Star Wars IP coming to mobile comics via Disney deal. Man, Disney knocking it out of the box. I didn't look to see what their stock was doing today based on that. Up slightly, but man, you got to love what the mouse is doing. I don't think the reaction to it. Now, I know, again, you're a person that's not buying long-term right now. But that's one, again, it's not taken off yet, but man, everything they've done in the last month or so, to me, points upward.
Yeah, no, totally doubt about it. As you know, I'm a big fan of Disney. When I heard about the woke thing, that's just silly. Going after the mouse is a little stupid because they are a company that's has their ear to the ground to what people want, and you can't go to the park. It's just slammed. Even if you have a pass, you still got to have a uh, go on the website. You got to click on the dates you want to go. I mean, it's almost everything's gonna be lightning lanes. They got you. They got you in the park. Got you nailed. And then Hulu now being pushed over to the Disney app by spring of 2026. They're growing. They're selling alcohol in the parks. They're listening to people,
You know,
the consumer.
and as you know, I'm a big fan and a member of the Seat of Affairs, and now it's Six Flags and that company.
Yeah.
And they're doing a terrible job keeping up with their parks this year. All I've seen is complaints over every Reddit and Facebook group that I'm part of. So I think and the reason I'm bringing that up is I think that separation is going to come. It's where the wife and I are saying, man, maybe next year we don't get the local pass and we do a Disney trip. Because that, if it's really running down the way it seems it is in these, and they're just sort of cutting every corner when Disney never cuts a corner, right? You go to that park, it's always amazing. We're starting to look at that return. So I do think that Disney's winning there too.
And I have plenty of room at my house, Howard. I expect you to come hang out.
Awesome.
We'll open the bar up. Listen, look, Howard. When you look at TV right now, that's a funnel that Six Flags and Cedar Fairs does not have. Right? Disney
Right.
shows you Mickey Mouse, shows her kid. Guess what? That kid is going to want to see Mickey Mouse. Right? When the kid wants to see a Marvel character as they get older, or a Star Wars character as they get older, they want to see that character at Disney Hollywood Studios, right? So they're creating a funnel, and that's what's happening, an ecosystem that Six Flags, while they have Bugs Bunny, that's also going away, right? With Warner Brothers.
Yeah, no, that's
So
public domain now. So they switched over. It's all
correct.
Snoopy land. Like ours is
Yeah.
Snoopy land.
Yeah.
There is talk, and it will be interesting. I will, again, just in full disclosure, a lot of rumors that they're gonna take the other IP side of that and not Marvel, but what's the other DC Comics?
Superman.
Superman and Batman, and they're going to brand their stuff that way, which is done in the past a couple of times. It goes over pretty well. So we'll see how that plays out. That's like the holy grail for all of those Kings Island, Kings Dominion, Six Flags folks. So there. Steve, other things moving up or down, man. This is one you and I didn't really see coming. Kava, free fall. We're both fans of this stock, in full disclosure. Thought because of their healthy lifestyle sort of setup and everything there. But man, and their CEO said the consumer is in a fog. Was the word, I believe. I'm trying to look because I want to make sure I have that quote right. Because I was just like, wow,
he's not wrong.
Not good.
He's absolutely not wrong. They are in a fog. And we're starting to see that. I mean, I'm here in the airport. You can look around. This is Tampa Airport. Tampa Airport. It's crickets.
Yeah.
This is not normal for Tampa. Tampa is a main thoroughfare.
Yeah.
It's not normal.
Yeah, they're down 24%, largest single day drop since their IPO. Fiscal year same store sales growth is now looking to be cut from 6% to 4%. Same store sales were up 2.1%, but they had been estimated at 6.1%. And the revenue was up 20% year over year, but they missed their estimates. So, they had a pretty decent year. It isn't like they're falling off the face, but I guess, again, multiples matter, even in the food industry. I did see, I don't have a lot of anything on it, but I did see the Brinker popped on one of my scanners here to the upside. So Brinker up about 7.19 here. And yep, this is on an earnings beat. I don't have any info. Like I said, this just popped up on my scanner here. And they did have a revenue beat and an earnings beat. Brinker Eat is your Chili's, a bunch of other of those level chains. So that's an interesting one. I'm trying to see if I get any notes
We
here that I
were, I
can
mean,
find.
my wife and I were in Chili's not too long ago and an Applebee's, and they're cleaning up their whole field, right? You know, it's they're listening to the consumer too, right? These $24 for two apps, and you know they are
You
listening.
just
And you know,
nailed it. Chili's sales growth was driving it. You nailed it to the T right there. Talked about menu innovation. I have seen that. I've seen that they've done a good job, and this one is not a surprise to you and I because we talked about this. Is that the McDonald's of the world were getting hurt and made a pivot. They've gone down to their value menu because they weren't able to compete with like the 3 for $10 that an Applebee's was doing, or the 3 for $10 that a Chili's were doing, where you're getting your drink, your burger and fries, and maybe ice cream or something at the end. That they were actually, being more cost efficient. We are about 3 minutes from the open, Steve. Tick is slightly positive. We're at 25.50 on advanced decline. Qs have pulled back, well, excuse me, not pulled back, pulled up here to 582.73. And now, continuing to move to the upside here. What
I
do
don't
you
know.
think?
Have you talked about the rumor about Warren Buffett buying stock in UNH?
I did not, because I haven't. I know that you sent it to me, but I haven't seen anything else on it. I didn't want to spur anything. And in all full disclosures, I'm already in UNH,
Yes,
so
correct. Yeah,
I didn't want to do anything that was not nice by the FTC or anybody else until I see some confirmation. Just because
yeah,
I do own some UNH again, in full disclosure, so I'll be very excited. That would make a lot of sense, right? I'll let you
yeah.
talk about it, Steve. And now that you've mentioned it, that does seem like it would be a huge deal. We know Warren and Berkshire are sitting on a lot of money. We had been thinking maybe railroads. You had been thinking maybe some food stuff there. And maybe, what it is healthcare, and in the biggest way. I mean, when he does stuff, I mean, again, best in class, Geico, his railroad was,
And that is a
his.
question mark. You know, that's the thing that bothered me the most with that UNH rumor was that how big of a monopoly will that create? That will that get the government excited to say, that's too much? But we don't have a Lena Khan anymore to say there's a monopoly. Now, this administration and Warren Buffett do not get along. As we all know, Warren is
Well, he's
Democrat.
not going to
So,
pay 15% for the right to have UNH.
right. So
you
there is
know,
a quick question about that. Yeah.
yeah, I do think that's a big one for sure. On the day, right now, all XLP. So we do have one sector, the consumer staple sector, is slightly down. I did want to mention Albemarle punching back up nicely today on the news that the issue they had in Chile with their lithium mine seems to be eased, and they're back at mining there. We are now open. Let's see, Q's going to the upside. Steve, I do think the market wants to run, and I'm using crypto as sort of the bellwether of that, what it did overnight. So first move on the Q to the downside, 582.59. So a little bit of profit taken. Wouldn't be a surprise. I expect to see profit taken across the IBIT and the Ethereum ETFs today that could affect Bitcoin's price right off the bat here. So let's see what we get.
To me, I just think we push on up. I mean, if the rumor mill is roughing that we're going to have this, Perplexity says it wants to buy Google Chrome,
Chrome.
but we're hearing that it might be just a political stunt right now for Perplexity. So I
Yeah,
don't see that
it's
happening.
an unsolicited offer. It's worth more than they're worth.
Correct. Yes.
They're offering more than the entire value of the company. I mean, you can do that. They claim they have 7 major investors ready to jump in, but that's a tough one, right?
Yeah, I don't believe that.
That one seems tough, especially with their lawsuits with New York Times and others, right?
I think Google continue to fights this.
And that's what
Yeah.
Google said. They said, well, they basically were like, hey, listen, we're not even close to done with
Right.
this yet.
Right.
So that not surprising either.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. Yeah. How about AMD up another 4.5% today? The chip sector coming back a little bit.
Well, and part of that is people are saying, listen, they were going to make 0 in China, and
Right.
now you're going to make 3 billion for them. I believe a little over 1 billion, but for Nvidia, and expected to be $3 billion a year. So giving back, 15% in VIG to the man, pumping it up to Tony Soprano in the White House isn't
Yeah.
that bad. I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, Chips. I mean, listen, and you saw it across some of the earnings too. We didn't get to all of them, but you saw moves up by CAI based upon their AI powered oncology. So again, AI, the need for chips is what I just keep seeing on every earnings report is how, companies in different sectors are going to be using AI. Again, in my US FinTech Award thing, everything is about, how AI can help, wealth managers, how it can help, lending, how it can help, it's just all about automation of services and the ability to do it in such a quick and rapid way.
I'd also point out in the pharmaceutical area, Eli Lilly, LLY, that the CEO started buying back some of the shares
I
over
did
the last
notice
couple of
that on
days.
my stuff
Yeah.
this morning. That was on there. Bitcoin holding up pretty nicely here, 126.50. So I love to see that. Right now, Qs have moved up 583.14, 583.19, and continue to run. Steve, I did tell
Solana up
people.
6%, my man.
Yeah, no, I know. VIX here, Steve, is buy. I would set it as I opened up with this is when you buy VIX protection, 1434 right now.
Yes.
This is when I'll take a look here this morning, buy some $15 calls for next month, maybe
Yes.
covered, maybe uncovered, but I'll give myself some protection from that, there. 47.30, Steve. We're going to an all-time high today on Ethereum. I'm calling it now, 48 and
All
change.
right.
We're hitting it today.
Can we hit an all-time high on Bitcoin as well?
If we didn't get the sell off from the ETFs, that means people are gonna start to buy them,
Yes.
because it's gonna hit everything else. So look for 48 on Ethereum today. Boom! I love it. And like you said, yes, Solana taking off. I tried to get into a couple of things this morning. I don't think I did though. Things moving too fast. Wow, Era 141. That's the one I talked about. We got out at 134 earlier today. I said this is going to 150 here today. Wow. They're running.
And
We'll
pound.
mention as a warning, anyone that's in SEI, the blockchain, they have a huge unlock coming on the 15th. So this would be a nice time to lock in some profits there. Personally, I will today. There, Solana, breaking 204. Here you go, Steve. Breaking out at 204 now. At 206 key resistance here. You break 206, you run to 225 without a stop. Man, Chainlink's not going to give me a chance to get either. Was trying to see if it would come back towards that 22, 21 area. It's not going to today, but we'll see what we get here. Take a look at those early morning pumpers.
It's the world we like to live in is the chase now, right? I mean, that's the difference now. Is where they're going to start chasing the FOMO, where there just isn't enough out there on the exchanges to buy, and it's exciting. I mean, we've seen this several times, but we've also seen the other side of this, where after the excitement runs and everybody owns what they want to own, and then everybody just starts dumping, right? Again, it's that pump and dump I hate, but I think this is different this time. I don't think there's a 4-year cycle anymore. I think we just go. I think we just push.
Yeah, well, I've told you the reasons why for that, and
Yeah.
instant app here getting hit a little bit here on the open. It was up 27%, pulling back. So that's what I mean. I was looking for not that big of a move, but I was seeing is Ethereum going to do that off the open? It's not. 47.30 here, 47.30 moving to the upside. High of the day, 47.35, continuing to run here. Trying to see if any core we've got hit real hard. Steve, we got to talk about that. AI, former crypto company that's moved more into the data center. They are down pretty heavily overnight here. And I would say they're not done. They have a huge IPO lockup that expires tomorrow. So watch for possible insider selling there. And they actually say it could jeopardize their takeover of Corz, CORZ, the true Bitcoin mining company that they wanted because they wanted Corz's power. So this hit could be a bigger hit for them. So as we've warned in the past, that's one I wouldn't necessarily be trying to buy a knife on or catch a falling knife today. Kava, on the other hand, moving back up a little bit here, back regained 70 here. Nice move to the upside, quite honestly. So people saying, listen, I understand the fog, but people still like Mediterranean food. I guess.
Absolutely.
I mean, I like Kava. Like I said, I'm with you that I don't think we're out of the woods on a bigger level for some things. So some of those speculative ones, I'll buy a little UNH. I'm not necessarily buying Kava on
Right.
these dips. You know what I mean? Is again, I'm sticking to the blue chips of stocks the way I stick to the blue chips of crypto. I think that's where there's still plenty of alpha in those bigger names. Trying to see, I didn't look. Berkshire up about a 0.5 percentage point, so maybe that news hitting, and they were up pretty big yesterday too. So
Yep.
Berkshire's made a move from 465 to 472 here fairly quickly, maybe on that news of UNH. Although I'd have to ask you, do you think it's two things? So we saw last there was usually the Buffett effect is pretty dominant and almost never failed. In other words, news of him investing in a company almost immediately results in about a 10% move to the upside a lot of times. But Alta was the big failure there, where it didn't, and it moved down. In fact, he got out of his position within like 6 months, which is again for him pretty unheard of. What do you think? If it is UNH, do we see the pop in UNH? Do we see the pop in Berkshire Hathaway?
I think we have to look at two things of Berkshire Hathaway, right? I mean, Berkshire Hathaway is an interesting situation because of what they own and where are they in consideration, right, of the next level of things, right? Is this going to be a place where that in the world we live in, run by railroads? Is it going to be run by insurance, or is it going to be run by AI and everything else? And is Berkshire Hathaway a company that's positioned to be in AI and the next level of stuff in blockchain?
Right.
And I don't think the
Not
answer
right
is
now.
yes.
I mean, not
Right.
right now.
No.
That's to me where the home run would be. He has these legacy companies that probably could use some AI automation and improvements and things like that, from Berkshire Hathaway Realty all the way up through Dairy Queen and in those. What would happen if he got in, bought one of these cloud names, one of these AI names, one of these CRM names? That to me would be where I would be. I would want to see, can Abel pull off one of those moves?
Mm-hmm.
Give them a Quasar Markets. Not saying we're for
Yeah.
sale, but I could work for Warren. I don't mind Omaha.
It's a nice.
I live in Ohio. How much worse can it be?
I mean, hey, I like Omaha, Nebraska. I like eating
There
steak
you
and
go.
rats.
So but that's what I mean. Can they integrate this new technology into some of the things they already own? I mean, I'm sure they do at Geico. Let's face it. That business is highly computerized, quantum computing and stuff that trying to be used to determine those actuary numbers and all that stuff. Bitcoin getting hit a little bit here, so we're getting a little bit of a sell-off, a little bit of a pullback. Same thing, Ethereum back below 47. Again, this is healthy. Nothing to worry about. Q's a little bit of a pullback also, back to just below 583 here.
It seems like a lot of profit taking going on about right now.
Definitely on the bigger high-flying names. Like I said, INTA was up to most of the pre-market. It's given back more than half of it. GLBE was up tremendously in the pre-open, now down 8%. Global Online, they were up. Where are my notes on them? They actually made it to the notes. They were up after earnings. They raised their guidance. They raised their revenue. They raised their profit, and now down 7% on that news. It shows you the profit taking, like you said, on some of these. You think that's those not necessarily zero DTEs, but the YOLO people?
Yes.
The buying out of the money, and then once it hits, sell, sell, sell.
I mean, it's
same thing. CAI, which we talked about. Caris Life Sciences, which talked about the use of AI in their oncology treatments. up 8% still today, but had been as high as 30, almost $40, now back down at $35. So as you mentioned, profit taking being seen. Same thing, MRX, Internet Software Service Company, that had been up again $38 earlier here, now back down to $35.22. I will say the Chinese ADR names are holding up pretty well. Billy, which is Billy, up about 6.17%. Kingsoft Cloud, which is KC, up 4.22. Those are holding up pretty well. Lee Motors a little bit the same, still up about 3%.
I mean, it's a taco trade, right? I mean, the president says, okay, here we go again. We'll just put it off by 90 more days from China, right? I think the world right now is looking at two things. The first thing is the Fed going to cut rates? And how is the meeting on Friday with Putin and Trump? And it went from, okay, we're going to get things done and we're going to cut a deal, to Carolyn Levitt now saying it's a listening tour. I mean, there's a lot of nonsense going on around this. So I really need to get a better, clearer picture of what's going on here. I just don't. So, that's why you're seeing the stock market pushing up a little bit on this feeling that we're going to get a bigger cut, because there's more of the Trump people going into the Fed, right? And with Kluger resigning and getting 2 picks now by Trump, it's going to be whatever Trump wants in the Fed. And then now Bissett saying that he wants 175 basis point cuts, but between now and the end of December. That's what's holding this up. But if I were to tell you that the debt ratio of the average household in America is at the highest in history, that we're already seeing numbers like 2008 with homes that are now becoming underwater, meaning that they owe more on the house than the house is worth, then that becomes a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem for the banks and mortgage companies for sure. See a little bit of profit taken here across all of the markets, so to speak, but it looks to me to be a little bit of a trying to trap some bears in personally, because of the way they're all bouncing at the same level.
Yeah,
so
trap them in. It's fine.
they're trying to trap them in. That the runaway was too fast for the bulls. They didn't feel that they inflicted enough pain, in my opinion. Let the bears take a little bit of the steam, and now they're bouncing it right back.
Bulls eat, bears eat, and pigs get slaughtered, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 33.61 on gold here, still pushing to the upside still, Steve.
And how about my silver? Back almost
38.50, almost 38.45. So we're getting close back up towards that $40 level.
I still think we're going to 43.
I love it. I love it. See what else is moving here. Not a bunch. Mag 7, Nvidia slightly down. The rest are up here. Tesla back at 347.91, Steve. That's a heck of a run.
I mean, don't fade the what?
Don't fade the Musk. That's what I always tell you.
Well, Howard, I have a meeting with Mr. Oliver Rennick here now. I meet with him, as you all know.
Okay.
But I appreciate it.
We're going to have Mr. Flanagan's coming in a couple of seconds anyway.
Good.
Steve, have a safe flight. We'll talk to you from New York tomorrow.
All right, my man. Bye.
Okay, let me pull up my screen here. We'll see what else we've got going on. Like I said, Tesla here, breakout. I would say here you got a clean run to 356 right now, 356 to the upside on Tesla. And any kind of break of that, you're looking at that 367.71 localized high on that, but definitely trying to break out to the upside. Let's see here on some of those bounce backs, what they're doing right now. Kava giving back some of that steam. So again, as we mentioned, I'm not buying that. I wasn't buying that dip. Some people did. Does look like it's starting to turn back over a little bit. Getty trying to bounce back here. It actually on the cash open made a nice move to the upside that got sold off. Now trying to bounce back. So we do see volatility. Like I said, volatility is seeping in here across a bunch of different things. Bitcoin back above 120,500 here, so we love it. Trying to bounce back to the upside here. I do see my main man, Mr. Flanagan, is here. We're going to bring him into the room and find out what's going on in the world of forex. Mr. Flanagan, how are we doing today, Steve?
Morning, Howard. Yeah, the dollar negatives are huge today. You've got lower rate environments, got percent now, maybe, tweaking it to a 0.5%. You got the BLS head being changed. You got a $37 trillion deficit. So the negatives to the dollar, as we've been talking about, are overwhelming to the sentiment. But the dollar is down, I think, 12% this year in the first half of the year, and that hasn't been seen since the 1970s, that type of move. And just to further emphasize the negative here, you've got the OTPP, which is Ontario Teachers. They manage about $266 billion.
Yeah, one of the largest. That's one of the holy grails of pension funds.
That's right. And they've announced that their US dollar asset size was reduced by 56% in the first half of the year to 40.2 billion. So they still have 40.2, but they reduced by 56. So, over this year, we've talked about the dollar and it going down. And I think this is very symptomatic of the type of dollar selling we've seen by a lot of the sovereigns throughout the world. So here we are at the lows. Still could probably punch it a little bit lower, 97.81 right now. I do see strong support. We have a chart of higher lows. Until you take out the most recent low of July 24th, which was 97.11, if you do not take that out, this is a correction in a dollar recovery. I know I'm a dollar bull.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with being a dollar bull. Listen,
I have a tough time defending myself in the last five months of a collapse in the dollar. But
I don't mean to laugh, but I lived it. I mean, it's when Bitcoin goes down, everyone's yelling at me, and I say, "Well, buy some." No one wants it. As soon as it breaks 98.67 here, everyone will be screaming to buy the DX. That they needed the DXY. That is the one thing I will point out in your defense. I know I'm one of the ones that sometimes attacks you, Mr. Flanagan. Today, yep. I am on your side, just so you know that you're right. Is that it's oversold. There's no other way to do it. But right now, there is sentiment, and that sentiment can continue downward for longer than you and I can stay solvent, unfortunately.
So true. Yes. But there are some positives I point out in the currency world, and right. That being that the dollar MEX at 1859.5 is actually higher than last Friday's close. Now, why do I bring the dollar MEX into a well, because when you look at the dollar, there are alternatives in North America if you want to stay out of the rest of the world, and that's the MEX and the Canada.
Right.
And in the dollar MEX, it's an 8% currency, and that's coming off of 10.5%. The world uses the MEX as a major traded currency to park its asset. We just talked about OTPP. Ontario Teachers, they manage $266 billion. So yes, that these are the type of players in the world. Norway's another, their sovereign wealth fund. In the Middle East, you've got the Sama, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Norway.
That's right. So they park money for interest when they're not sure where to go. The MEX is closing higher on a week. It has been a attraction, a magnet to money. Then I take Canada. Canada right now, 136.68, is slightly above last Friday's close. So in this overwhelming dollar narrative that you read everywhere, the two major currencies that are the bookends to the dollar are trading higher, meaning the parked money in the MEX is beginning to slowly back out into the marketplace. In a world where the U.S. is now pretty much getting expected to cut rates, the bond market in the United States to quickly lock in 4+% interest The dollar is a high interest rate currency. If the dollar is at the lows, the currency risk to the downside is minimal in the sense provided it stays above 97.11.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's where I begin to look in a broader picture. If I'm day trading, the sentiment is negative here. But I'm looking at opportunities of where I can begin to backstop myself into my long dollar scenario.
And that would match up with the bottom of the handle from that cup and handle that it had formed recently on the daily chart here. That would match right up with that. So I definitely see what you're looking at there. It makes sense to me also. You know, maybe a half a point cut. You know, what are you thinking now? Maybe they missed the mark again?
Well, I think if one of the other big things, changing the head of the BLS. Okay. And I've been in the markets for 43 plus years. And the statistics that come out of the US government have always been poor. They are always revised. So for a market that's constantly evaluating data dependency, right? This is something, then that data dependency needs to have a little bit more accuracy. In a world that we live in today, data should be much more accurate. I'm not
without a doubt. There's no excuse. We joke about it, but there is no excuse
Yes,
for lagging data nowadays for these issues to come up. They're still using phones and paper. And I will tell you that is a downfall of the government, is that because it's so big, their computer systems are so outdated because they were all built for the government back in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and they use COBOL. The only place that someone that has a degree that I have in COBOL can find a job is programming the old computers across the U.S. government. That's a problem.
So you ask, should the Fed cut a half? Well, I would think that if the Fed had the revised figures at their last meeting, then it would have pretty much been a slam dunk on a 0.25% cut. So now what are we going to do on this meeting now that we see their second mandate of employment, which Powell has hung his hat on in the last testimony, right? He talked about labor's still strong. We can't cut yet. We would have cut if there weren't tariffs. Okay, tariff inflation, and again, the narrative, all of a sudden, everybody's talking core. The month-to-month number, let's just take the data for what it's worth. The month-to-month number was mildly, was not higher. So this narrative of the core was up to 3.1 on a year basis. If we use that type of logic, where were we in 2023 when inflation was jumping 0.5%? So and the Fed was not raising rates as a result. So yeah, I think the case for 0.5%, which matches what they did, I think last September, October, prior to the election. I think that the room is there for the 0.5%. I certainly think we're looking at 0.25%. But suddenly, lower interest rates is bad for the dollar.
Yeah, it is funny how quickly these things do change in our minds.
Yeah.
What other currencies are you looking at this week so far, Mr. Flanagan?
Well, I keep watching sterling. That's a big one for me. 135.60 right now, still above last week's close. Sterling would have to make a substantial move to the downside. I don't think that the economics in the UK are that good. I think we're going to have to wait for that data to come out and show us, in fact, the truth behind that. But I'm watching cable because when that one starts to move, sentiment right now is built up to the point that the Bank of England made a hawkish cut of 0.25%. So they're still at 4% interest rates, and that's still a pretty good return when you look at Europe at 2%. And like I talked about, Mex and Canada being bookends, sterling is a bookend outside of the Europe as well as the Swiss franc. So I'm watching that to really get my underlining sentiment in place, and I'd be watching very carefully the 134.48 level
Okay.
on sterling. On the yen, so there's numbers out at the end of the week, industrial production, GDP. Most people are saying that this is going to be higher, and this is going to be the final nail for the Bank of Japan to raise interest rates, further narrowing the U.S. With the U.S. coming down and Japan going up. That should be good for the yen. I don't think those figures are going to be good, and I think that that's going to undermine the long yen play in the market. Last week's close was 147.70. You're right now at 147.35. It's not going to take much of a move to punch the dollar yen up above last week's close, and you're going to see a big unwinding of yen longs. I still like to forecast the dollar yen back into the 150s.
Okay. That would be move. That'd be a heck of a move there
Yep,
for
yep.
sure. Yeah.
So that's basically where I'm at here. Right now you need to break 97.11 in the Dixie. If you don't get that break, the bears, because everybody's bearish, you're suddenly going to have another higher low placed on the market. And that is not something where I am looking to add in to a short dollar play. So
Right. It makes sense, and that's what's so important. Have your stop losses in place. It's risk reward. I'll tell you, I missed a trade. I went long Bitcoin just before it went, and it went down first. We got stopped out, and then it took off. That's what happens, sometimes. But that's why we keep that risk reward tight in times like now. It's so important to do that. Take profits along the way. I will say that again as we sort of close out here for all you crypto folks that are high flying today. Please take some profits off of some of those positions and be ready to reinvest it into, into other things.
As Steve says, right? Buy the dip, sell the rip.
Absolutely. Mr. Flanagan, thank you so much. Like always, we'll see you here on Friday, Quasar Markets. We'll be back tomorrow morning to see you.
Okay.